Home economics, now known as Family and Consumer Sciences (FCS), is the profession and field of study that deals with the economics and management of the home and community. The field deals with the relationship between individuals, families, and communities, and the environment in which they live. As a subject of study, FCS is taught in secondary schools, colleges and universities, vocational schools, and in adult education centers. Students include women and men. It prepares students for homemaking or professional careers, or to assist in preparing to fulfill real-life responsibilities at home. As an academic profession, it includes educators in the field and human services professionals. The field represents many disciplines including consumer science, nutrition, food preparation, parenting, early childhood education, family economics, human development, interior design, textiles, apparel design, as well as other related subjects. Family and consumer sciences education focuses on individuals and families living in society throughout their lifespan, thus dealing not only with families but also with their interrelationships with the communities. Other topics such as sexual education and fire prevention may also be covered. One of the first to champion the economics of running a home was Catherine Beecher, sister to Harriet Beecher Stowe. Catherine and Harriet both were leaders in mid-19th century North America in talking about domestic science. They came from a very religious family that valued education especially for women. The Morrill Act of 1862 propelled domestic science further ahead as land-grant colleges sought to educate farm wives in running their households as their husbands were being educated in agricultural methods and processes. Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, Illinois, Minnesota and Michigan were early leaders offering programs for women. There were women graduates of these institutions several years before the Lake Placid conferences, which gave birth to the home economics movement. The home economics movement started with Ellen Swallow Richards, who was the first woman to attend Massachusetts Institute of Technology and later became the first female instructor. Through her chemistry research, she became an expert in water quality and later began to focus on applying scientific principles to domestic situations. At the Chicago World's Fair in 1893, she designed the Rumford Kitchen, which was a tiny kitchen that served nutritious meals to thousands of fairgoers, along with a healthy dose of nutrition education. She shunned an invitation to participate in the women's building as she said none of her research was just women's work, but rather information for all. Late in the 19th century, Richards convened a group of contemporaries to discuss the essence of domestic science and how the elements of this discipline would ultimately improve the quality of life for many individuals and families. They met at pristine Lake Placid, New York at the invitation of Melville Dewey. Over the course of the next 10 years, these educators worked tirelessly to elevate the discipline, which was to become home economics, to a legitimate profession. Richards wanted to call this ecology or the science of right living. Euthenics, the science of controllable environment, was also a name of her choice, but home economics was ultimately chosen as the official term in 1899. Richards then founded the American Home Economics Association, now called the American Association of Family and Consumer Sciences, in 1909. In the 1910s the AHIA won passage of two crucial pieces of legislation that allowed home economists to establish formal niches for research and teaching within institutions of higher education. The Smith-Lever Act of 1914 and the Smith-Hughes Act of 1917 provided funding to expand demonstration work in rural communities and to develop and teach a home economics curriculum on the campuses of most state land-grant colleges. Home economics emerged at the turn of the 20th century as a movement to train women to be more efficient household managers. At the same moment, American families began to consume many more goods and services than they produced. To guide women in this transition, professional home economics had two major goals: to teach women to assume their new roles as modern consumers and to communicate homemakers' needs to manufacturers and political leaders. The development of the profession with its origins as an educational movement to its identity as a source of consumer expertise in the interwar period to its virtual disappearance by the 1970s. In the 19th century, home economics classes were intended to ready young women for their duties in the home in healthy environments. Classes were first offered in the United States, Canada, Germany and Great Britain, followed by Latin America, Asia, and Africa. International organizations such as those associated with the United Nations have been involved in starting home economics programs around the world. Through the 1940s, Iowa State College, later university, was the only program granting a Master of Science in Household Equipment. However, this program was centered on the ideals that women should acquire practical skills, but also a scientifically based understanding of how technology in the household works. For example, women were required to disassemble and then reassemble kitchen machinery so they could understand basic operations as well as repair the equipment. In doing so, Iowa State effectively created a culturally acceptable form of physics and engineering for within the boundaries of what constituted the boundaries of women's knowledge at the time. Home economists found a receptive audience among many of its young female members who expressed interest in learning about how to improve their homes, spend their leisure time, and make decisions about what to buy, what to make at home, and even what books to read. A Standards Committee's proposal in 1924 changed the Ohio Constitution, allowing for a special voting membership section clearing the way for HIBE, Home Economists in Business, section. The largest group of HIBE members worked for food companies such as Washburn Crosby, later General Mills, Kellogg's, or trade associations charged with promoting particular foods such as the Institute of American Meat Packers and the National Dairy Council. Worked as journalists for women's magazines such as the Ladies' Home Journal. Worked for utility companies. The function that home economists have been performing for more than a century remains key to our experiences as consumers, but the professional identity has disappeared. Indeed, efforts to reposition the discipline ultimately led to its renaming in the late 20th century. In 1994, home economics was replaced by family and consumer science. This renaming signaled a formal break from the field's association with domesticity, highlighting instead issues of family and consumption. A new actor that rose to prominence in the 1980s was the charismatic celebrity unaligned with home economists or any other professional group. Martha Stewart and her fellow domestic celebrities, in television programs, books, magazines, and websites, attest to the continued importance of independent experts and commercial mass media organizations in facilitating technological and cultural change in consumer products and services industries. To a great degree, Americans today tap into values once enshrined in a home economics curriculum to express a national identity and assert a standard of living that is distinct not only from third world cultures, but also from the cultures of other industrialized nations. Even as luxury consumption exerts a cultural pull for many, middle-class culture still celebrates consumers who make sensible, controlled choices in the marketplace, resisting pure pleasure, impulse purchases, and cheap or shoddy goods.